Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer, and today I'm Gamesplaining July. So it is August now. I don't know where the last few months have gone. They've just totally disappeared. I'm going to assume that I'm not alone in that thought. I have once again not played a whole bunch of games, but I have played more than the 10, which, this is my top 10 for what I played last month, as with other videos. So let's get straight into it. My number 10 is Sagrada. Sagrada is a game that I've forgotten about, is probably the best way to say it. It's kind of sit on the shelf and it might come out every now and then, but I tend to not play it that often. I don't dislike it. I find that there's enough going on with it to be really thinky and puzzly. And that's really what the game is. It's a puzzle of what can I use to put into these spots. So you've got different coloured dice, you roll the dice, you choose one. If you're the person who rolled, other people choose, then it comes back and you'll choose the last one, and the last die that's not chosen gets thrown at the top. And you need to start on the edges and build out this stained glass window. The thing is, you can't put the same colour or same number next to each other. And the card that you've got in there will tell you that some of the spots must be purple or yellow or whatever the color of the die is or whatever the number is. And so you're having to make a choice always of which of the dice that are available am I going to put in and which ones do I wish to use. So look, I really appreciate that, and let's move straight on. My number 9 game is Junk Art. Now, Junk Art is one of those games that comes out often. It hasn't come out really often within the last few months, but it's one of those games that I can pull out and get to the table really quickly. I have found that I've always needed to have the rule book next to me, however, simply because there's a card that tells you which city you are in, and whichever city you're in will change the way that the game plays. And I actually really appreciate that. I don't, in most games, appreciate being given 5 different options on ways to play the game. But in this one, because you're basically just taking cards and they tell you how to play, I do appreciate it. There's something about it. I think it's just easy rather than being a non-choice from the designers. I think it's an actual choice from the designers to change the way we have to manipulate the stuff. I really appreciate that. Sometimes I'm really good at it, sometimes not. Dexterous people, Let's move on. My number 8 game is Nova Luna. Now, Nova Luna, I was expecting to be a more difficult game, is probably the best way to put it, than it turned out to be. I don't dislike the game. I just wanted something more out of it. The whole idea of Nova Luna is that you're taking a tile and putting it into your things that you're making up, and you need to put certain colors next to it to be able to get what is on, or the combination that's on that tile. And so going after those combinations is really important, and the amount that you spend on a tile will dictate how far ahead on a track you move, and whoever's at the back, it's their turn. There's a lot of it's probably Uwe-ness is probably the best way to put it. It's got a lot of those quilting ideas that have come into it, and there's a whole bunch of stuff like that just like you play and you go, yeah, that's an Uwe game. That's an Uwe Rosenberg game. So look, I appreciate it. I like it. I think that it could have been, or I think I wanted it to be more difficult than it was, or more intrinsic than it was, but I still enjoyed it, however. My number 7 game is Fast Sloths. Now, I played this game as a 5-player game. I really enjoyed it. I think it works better with more players, and I really like that. There's much more going on the board, so the state of the board is going to be different when you look at it next time than what it was when you left it. If you're playing with less players, the state doesn't change that often. What I found with this one is the game was won and lost right at the beginning. A lot of the players all went into the same kind of area, and I went over here. And at that point, I didn't know this was the case, but at that point, I had lost the game because I had to work really hard to get the right animal to move me a couple of spaces, whereas these guys were able to use what the other people had done to just follow them through and not have to worry about moving things into place to be able to then use them. So just bear that in mind whenever you're playing Fast Sloths, that if everyone's clumping, you probably want to be in the clump. because it just makes sense. My number 6 game is Plunderbund. I really appreciate this game. I kind of like it's deck building ish is probably the best way to put it. The whole idea of putting things onto a map and your manipulation of the cards that you've got in front of you is it's really nice. I quite like in this deck building idea of to do whatever's on the card, it's going to cost you one of these negative cards, and they just go into your deck. When they come through, you just discard them. But what it means is if you have a whole bunch of them, you're probably going to have turns where you have very few cards that you can actually do something with. The other concept in this game that I really appreciate is the idea that you can choose to or choose not to do what is on the card. So if you choose not to pay for the card, then you don't do what's on the card. To be honest with you, whenever I've played the game, I've just done it anyway and moved through that way. I wonder if there's a way to play this where you focus in on one or two areas rather than just going everything that comes through. And I don't know. But I appreciate this game. I do find that it's a little bit time-y is probably the best words. If you've got players who aren't 100% switched on, it can take a really long time to play. And so just bear that in mind. It's one of these other games that has the half hour per player marking on the side for the time limit. I've found that the games that have that marking, they're good, they're fine, but they tend to take a little longer than I really necessarily want out of games. So there it is. My number 5 game is Aegisia Shifting Sands. I quite appreciated Aegisia Shifting Sands. The way that it plays is that there's 3 spaces on the left-hand side, or 3 areas. Each area has a couple of different things in it on the left-hand side, and there's a whole bunch of cards on the right-hand side. And what you're doing is it's worker placement, so you're placing a worker, but every time you place a worker, it has to be further down the Nile. And so you have to make the decision of, if I go for this one, is that one that I really, really want still going to be there when it gets back around the table to my turn again? Or is someone else going to jump on that? But if I jump down to that, I'm not going to be able to step back up the board. There's a lot of funkiness on that. The downfall in this game is that everything on the left-hand side, each of them has different things and different ways it scores and different numbers of things that need to go into them. Like, I appreciate that, but I find that remembering them as you're playing is really tough. So I'll just leave that with you. Please go ahead and watch my gameplay on that one to get a feel for what I'm actually talking about. But I appreciated the game. Why not? My number 4 game is Tang Garden. Now, Tang Garden is another one of these games that I find sits in a relaxed position. I don't know what it is about the games from the Asian continents, or based or set in the Asian continents, that when you're playing them, it's just, there's a relaxation. Yeah, it's really thinking. There's a heap of stuff going on that you kind of got to get your head around. But the actual playing of it, you kind of, oh yeah, I'll just do that and that. And it's kind of relaxed. I kind of like that. I need games that just settle me down. That aren't just, do this. It's relaxed. There's a lot of thinking that's going on with this one, because there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do, and you're placing tiles and getting stuff off the board, and or you can just take cards instead, and making the decisions as to which ones to go with, and you've got personal elements that do something specific, and you want to hang on to them for a little while and get them to work really well, and then get another one in. There's a lot of stuff going on with that. But in essence, Tang Garden, it's just a nice, relaxed game. My number 3 game is Tuluva. Now, Tuluva is the only game that I don't own within this top 10. And I've noticed that happening a lot this year. It's come up a few times. I think one of the months I may have even forgotten to put it on the list because I don't own it. I really enjoy it. I really appreciate this game. I don't know how to easily, without an extraordinary expense, get my hands on a copy of this. I'm happy that one of the players that plays relatively regularly with me does have a copy and brings it along, and we play. I usually lose. He usually loses as well. There's just something about it that there's some toughness going on. I think I may actually, having said that, I think I may have won last game. But there's a nice way to play, I guess, is probably the best way to say it. That you're thinking through where to place these little tokens or tiles, and you try and build up. But at the same time as building up, you have to then put extra guys that you have, or your villagers, onto spots and build up. And there's a lot of thinkiness going on, but it's actually quite streamlined at the same time. I think I really appreciate that about this game. It's just streamlined. My number 2 game is the Isle of Cats. Now, the Isle of Cats, if you read the book, read the rules, there seems like there's a lot going on. When you actually play it, it plays relatively straightforward. There's a really nice polyomino placement element on this game, but that's not all this game is about. You've also got the hand manipulation and choosing which cards to use, which cards you're going to purchase. But cards you purchase, you don't have to use them straight away. You can just hang on to them. The winner of the game is usually the person who's able to purchase the cards that they're going to use, not just purchase cards. There's nice kind of adding things onto a boat and building up on that. Isle of Cats is one of the games where I have actually gone and got the extra player expansion, simply because I think it's a really good game. I want to be able to play it, and because it's only limited to 4 players, having that extra player opens up the ability to bring it to the table with a game group. Of course, it's very rare for me to only have 4 people at the table, even though probably half of this collection behind me is 4 players maximum. So having that extra player in there, I haven't played with them yet, but when I do, I'm sure it'll be just wonderful. Which brings me to my number 1 game for July. It's a Wonderful World. I really appreciate It's a Wonderful World. Having said that, I usually lose. I haven't yet managed to get a way of winning this game. I found that other people, they'll find it really quickly and really easily. This one, not so much. The way of playing on this game is really similar to Seven Wonders, because you're drafting a couple of cards and then pass them on. But there's an extra step, because when you draft, you're then choosing, am I going to take the cubits on the side, or am I going to try to build it? If you're trying to try and build it, it goes into an area that you're then trying to build to get into your factory. And once it's built in the factory, then you're going to get extra stuff out of it. But to get it into the factory, can I do that? The one time, I don't know how many times I played this year, but the one time that I did win this game, I found that I didn't have any of those extra cards left in my area waiting to be built. There's a real funkiness on this game where you're thinking, oh, I want that card, and I want that card, and I want that card, and I want that card, but you cannot build all of them. So making the decisions is really important, and seeing how they're going to give you points at the end of the game is also really important. It's not just about getting cards into your factory. So look, It's a Wonderful World. Go ahead, watch the games play, watch the games smash, get a feel for it. And I really appreciate it. It came out in, I think it was Essen in 2019. It's a really good game, really, really spot on. Look, I will leave it there. That was my top 10 for last month. If you have any games that you would like to be gamesplaying, please shoot me an email to thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter @thegamesplainer to keep up to date with the games I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games that I'm gamesplaining. And until next time, enjoy gaming.